Hello everybody, welcome to my video on how I set up my dust collection for my small shed. Outside of my shed, I had this Rubbermaid Roughneck tool closet for a while to put tools in before I had my shed put up. And once I had a new place to put the tools, I decided to repurpose this by putting the Harbor Freight dust collector outside. Provides a couple benefits. One is the noise. It is a lot quieter inside the shop without this running. And two is the bag filter really doesn't provide very good filtration. It lets a lot of very fine particulate into the work area, and by it being out here, all that's going to collect inside this container. Container's not airtight, so some does get out in the area, but it's not where I'm working. One of the other benefits is that it's not taking up space in my shop. This would take up a little bit of space. If you look at it, you'll see that I modified it some. Instead of having the fan collecting directly off of the dust collection inside, I've got it going through a 55-gallon drum. And the reason I did this is there's a mechanical screen on the intake of this fan, and it tends to get clogged. I found over at a friend's house where we use his dust collector, you have to take it apart fairly often if you're dealing with larger items. By having it set down onto the top of the drum and drawing a suction off the drum, and inside I've got some 4-inch PVC elbows kind of pointing down to create a vortex, that doesn't clog. And if it did clog, I could just turn it off, let it settle out, and turn it back on again. So if you're not going to do the drum with this, it may be possible that you have to come out and clean that screen occasionally if you're dealing with anything like leaves or smaller pieces of wood that may get picked up. Just something to keep in mind. I would prefer to use a plastic drum instead of a metal drum, but this is what I had available at the time when I was out here. And as you can see, I took the metal base off and just put some plywood down to support that because of how I did this. It comes in from my shed through a 4-inch line, straight in. This is a slip connection. As you can see in there, hopefully, it angles down to give that vortex. That's for maintenance. You can also see my power cord comes in. And that's actually a heavy-duty extension cord for the shop. And there's a on-off switch on the other side I'll show in a moment, but that lets me disconnect it for maintenance. Some things I needed to do with this, it'll be kind of hard to see, but I put a spacer under there, and it's got a tapered inlet to fit the taper on the inlet of the fan. And then I've got these razors here, and they're just kind of help to keep it balanced. And then I've got a nice little strap across the top just to kind of keep this sitting on the spacers. And just like the normal setup, the outlet of the fan goes straight to the bag. It took about a year for me to fill this up to the point where I needed to empty it, and I did not empty that. That is a year's worth of extremely fine sawdust that is collected. And then I have blown this out a couple of times, although it may not look it, but there is a very, very fine layer that forms on the inside of here. And let's go take a look on the inside so we can see how I have that set up. Alright, inside the shop, I'm using the Rockler Dust Right collection system with a expanding flex hose that lets me hook it into my table saw, the router I have on the end of my table saw, my lathe, and my bandsaw. I can also use it for my little oscillating saw. Off of this, I set it up on a simple boom arm. This is just a threaded rod going through with some spacers up there, and I can actually move this pretty much as much as I need to get to pretty much anything in my shop. I've seen models that use casters, old casters, for doing that. There's a couple different ways to do it, but basically for mine, the threaded rod is captured on that larger wood piece up at the top, fed through the 4 spacers there, and just captured on the bottom with enough give so that I can rotate around. You can see it taps off the 4-inch PVC. And we come over, and this is the other side of that connection we saw inside the little shed. It goes straight through. There's about a gap of that much on the other side of my wall. This is the heavy-duty extension cord, an on-off switch. This was an emergency stop, but I really didn't have a use for an emergency stop with the dust collector, so I swapped that out for an LED to remind me when I leave it on. As I said, it is quiet, especially when you have another dust collection for the air filtration and maybe a fan going. You may not actually hear it. We'll give that a start up. And once it pulls it in, it's not that different than having a fan running. We'll get my filtration fan going, and as you can hear, that can kind of cover it up. I do have something stuck up in the hose there that will have to clear eventually, or I may have to disconnect it and clear it out, but it's not blocking anything. And as you can see, the help of the LED light means I can just look over and make sure I still have it on or if I've turned it off. And after that, it's just run over to a receptacle. Let's turn it back on and go back outside so you can hear it out there. So this is it in operation. As you can hear, it's quite a bit louder if you had that in your shop. And then of course this bag filter. Look at that. That's stuff that makes it through. I hope you were able to see that. That's the stuff you want to try to prevent breathing. So having that in your shop really isn't helpful. That's why a lot of people end up putting a mechanical canister filter on these. I just took a different route. Well, hopefully this proves something helpful to somebody else. There's many, many ways to do this, and this isn't the only right way to do it, but it has worked out well for me. And I enjoy using my dust collection. I turn this on pretty much anytime I'm working with dust, just because of how convenient it is. I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you for watching the video. Okay. First we'll be setting up the lid. I did seal the inside edge of this with silicone when I first put it on. That's why the blue tape's there, just to kind of help give a fit. And then a cutout for the actual blower fan itself. I really don't need the clamp ring tightened down in place. It's mostly there to just keep that seal between the barrel and the lid a little closer together. And what I have here is a ring I turned. It's got a slightly tapered interior for the dust collector fan, and on there I also have a piece of rubber cement glued on it so that it'll form a slightly better seal along the top edge. And this will fit in here. I have some silicone that I had put up here originally to help out a little bit, so I'm just trying to line that. There we go. Now for the fun part. Almost forgot, I'm going to have two blocks here, and all these are really doing is to help support the fan so it's not putting all of its pressure down on there. You want some. It's a pretty hefty fan. Alright, and there's that gasket I was talking about, cement glued in place. That's just a belt from a bandsaw that I had replaced. And we want to angle this. So my hose goes that way. While keeping everything in mind. And this is the difficult part. There we go. I use one of these rubber straps just to kind of hold everything in place. There you go. Then I'll make up this connection over here. The two connections on the exhaust of the blower fan are clamped in place as opposed to the slip fit. And that's because, excuse me, it will be under a slight pressure and I don't need it blowing apart while it's in operation. There we go. Down a little bit. That's on there pretty good. That's on there. We got that clamped in place. As I showed earlier, this is just a slip fit in and out because it's going to be drawing air and material in that way. Should be never really anything to push that out. Last step, hooking up power. Alright, and that's ready to go. Hey baby girls. Hi.